The heel flap is worked across half the total number of stitches. In our case, that's 30 stitches. So from our stitch marker, we're going to knit 30 stitches. We're going to leave the remaining 30 stitches on hold because we will work the heel flap back and forth in rows. If you're wondering why we're using a Dutch heel, it's because it's just that little bit sturdier than the boomerang heel or another kind of knitted heel. This is because it is reinforced by the extra yarn running behind the slip stitches. 30. Now we turn our work and we're going to work the heel flap back and forth. Slip the first stitch purlwise and purl the whole of this round until the stitch marker. So remove the stitch marker and turn your work. We're now going to start with the heel flap. Slip the first stitch purlwise, knit the second stitch, slip the third stitch and knit one. So repeat this the whole way across. Slip one, knit one, slip one, knit one, until the end of your row. Knit the last stitch and turn your work. Slip the first stitch purlwise and purl all the remaining stitches. My tip for you is instead of counting the rows as we knit upwards from here, count the stripes on the back of your work. You can see here that where we slip stitches, we've carried these strands of yarn along the back of them. This makes the heel a bit thicker and therefore more resistant to wear. This is 28 rows high. When we count them, it's actually 14 of these rows of strands as you count up, which is much easier to count than 28. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. After the 14th row, you begin turning the heel. We've just finished knitting our heel flap of 28 rows. We're going to divide the heel flap in 3 groups of 10 stitches for working the heel turn as we go around the corner. And it goes as follows. Purl the first 10 stitches. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. That's a third of the heel turn. That's the first 10 stitches. And now work the second third of the heel turn. That's 10 stitches again. So knit the first 9 stitches. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. The 10th stitch is worked together with the next stitch, so purl the 10th and 11th stitches together. And now turn your work. We still have 9 stitches on the right hand needle. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And we're now going to work our way back again. So slip the first stitch purlwise, then knit That's 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Slip the 10th stitch purlwise and knit the 11th stitch and pass the slip stitch over the knitted stitch. And there we have 10 stitches in the middle. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. 9 stitches on the left and 9 stitches on the right side of the work. Turn your work around. Slip the first stitch purlwise and purl to the gap where we turned our work before. Stop 1 stitch before the gap and work the stitch before the gap and the stitch just after the gap together. This is where we turned our work. So purl these 2 stitches together. Then turn your work again. Slip the first stitch, then knit across till 1 stitch before the gap. We slip the stitch purlwise and knit the stitch after the gap and pass the slip stitch over it. Then turn your work again. And we repeat this until all the stitches are worked away on both sides and we have 10 stitches remaining in the middle on the needle. We can already see that we're turning the corner here. This here, you can see, is going to be our heel. We're going to continue by knitting the Dutch heel. Of course, right now all I've got is a very short sock, but I'm going to move on so I can show you how knitting the Dutch heel works on 5 needles. We're going to leave the 5th needle for now, and we're going to work the stitches on the 4th needle onto the 1st needle. We'll end up with 30 stitches on the 1 needle. We'll work the Dutch heel across 2 needles. That's needles 1 and 4. And that means we won't be knitting in the round for now, but in rows, back and forth. Now we purl the stitches. So we slip the first stitch purlwise, then purl the rest normally. There we go. Turn your work again. Then begin by slipping 1 stitch purlwise with the yarn behind your work. Knit the 2nd stitch, slip the 3rd stitch purlwise, knit the 4th one, slip the 5th one, and repeat this until the end of the row. And the yarn which runs along the back whenever you slip a stitch helps make sure that the heel is nice and sturdy. That way it wears out less quickly. We begin turning the heel on the wrong side. Here you can see the strap running along the back here. These are the ones that give the heel its added strength and wear resistance. The heel turn is worked over 3 groupings. We have 30 stitches on our needle right now, which works out to 3 groups of 10. All the details are in the accompanying knitting chart. Slip the first stitch purlwise, then purl the first 10 stitches. Six, 8, 9, 10. And the end of the second group of 10, knit the 10th and 11th stitches together. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Let me just double check. I have 19 stitches in total. 2, 4, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 18, 19. Then purl the 10th and 11th stitches together. Then turn your work. We're knitting short rows here. You should have 9 stitches left on the right hand needle. Slip the first stitch, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Slip the 10th stitch purlwise, then knit the 11th stitch and pass the 10th stitch, the slip stitch, over the 11th stitch. Now we have 10 stitches in the middle. And we repeat this until all the stitches on the sides have been worked away. So we work back on the wrong side. And you'll see by the 10th stitch that you have a gap forming where you turned your work. That's this here. And you work the stitch before and the stitch after the gap together, purlwise. Then turn your work. Slip this stitch purlwise, then knit until you reach the gap. Slip the stitch before the gap, knit the stitch after the gap, and pass the slip stitch over it. Turn your work, and you can begin to see that we are turning up to go around the hill. Keep knitting until all the stitches are worked away, and finish on the right side of your work.